Okay, so we are up to Seif Mem Zayin. The Seif Mem Zayin is a bit strange because it starts off still with Tfilin Shel Rosh and then it switches to Tfilin Shel Yad. So we'll sort of break it down into two. So says the Mechaber, Im katav kol arba parshiyot beklaf echad ksherim, אפילו אין רווח ביניהם, ובלבד שיהיה חוט ומשיכה בין כל בית לבית. In other words, what's going on here, this is Tfilin Shel Rosh. Tfilin Shel Rosh, as we said, really, each parasha needs to be on a separate klaf. But, b'diavad, if you wrote all four parashiyot even on one klaf in Tfilin Shel Rosh, it's kasher, even if there is no spacing between the parashiyot, ובלבד שיהיה חוט ומשיכה בין כל בית לבית. The only requirement is that you need to put some sort of string separating between the batim, and then that way sort of creating it into four parashiyot. So here, the Mishnah Berurah says, אפילו אין, רצון לא נאמר, וכל שכן כשיש רווח בין הפרשיות, שיוכל לחותכם, וישתר כדי היקף גביל לכל אחד, לשפיר דן. דאף דבית הכתיבה, כתבן בקלף אחד. So what you could do, if you do have space between the parashiyot, so even if you wrote it on one klaf, you could simply cut it and separate them, and then you would have four parashiyot. But even if you can't do that, it's still kasher. So that's what he says. In other words, if I have them each on separate clavs, so I can put it in like we saw last time in the previous, that the parasha should be standing up. In other words, with the beginning of the writing to the top of the tefillin. But if it's all on one clav, then you somehow have to start with one bite and then fold it and go into the next and then come back down and do it with foldings. So behechrach, some of the parashiyot are not going to be properly. Shulam, good morning, Rav Zot.
Every second one, basically.
What?
Two should be up, two should be down.
Again.
Folded. Two should be up in the right way, and two should be facing downwards. If you fold it.
I guess it depends if how you wrote it. If you wrote them one next to each other or one on top of each other, I have a hard time imagining how it would work. We're speaking about the case where somebody wrote all four parashiyot of Tfilin Shel Rosh on one klaf, and then he's trying to somehow fit it into the batim. So I don't know. I'm having a bit of difficulty wrapping my head around. But you're saying would be the first one would be up, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next one
would be down.
Right. And then the next one somehow would
be up.
Mm-hmm. And then the last one down again. Okay. In other words, what he's proving is that we see here that the skifa is not nakiv, because otherwise it would not be possible if they're all on one class. Now, the other thing that you do need to do in the case where you don't have separation is to have some sort of string separating the parashiyot. So he says here, in Seif Katan Reish Yud Zayin, אצלנו לומר, דכיוון שכתב הפרשיות באור אחד, צריך להפסיק בחוט ומשיכה או ביגוד, נגיד, כמו שאנו נוהגים בין בית לבית, כדי לתת הכר שהבתים מובדלים. אבל בכתב הפרשיות על ד' דורות, אין צריך לתת כלום בין בית לבית. In other words, it seems that this requirement of putting a string is only in this case where I wrote it on one or one class. But if I would write it on separate klafim, there would be no requirement to put a string to separating between the batim. ויש פוסקים בכל גבני צריך לתת הבדל בין הבתים, וכן יש לנהוג כמו שכתב המחבר לקמן בסימן נ"א, ויעביר חוט. In other words, we'll see in סימן נ"א, the Mechaber says in all cases to put a string to separate between each bite. מכל מקום לעניין דיעבד כתב התו שם, דינו מעכב שם שהעיקר כסברה ראשונה, that really this idea of separating between the batim is only in a case where I wrote it on one class. But if I wrote it on four separate klafim, then it's not necessary. But again, he says that our minhag is to always make a string. Now, it's not so clear to me. I tried to read up about this, where exactly they put the string. If you look in the Mefarshim, in the Mekorot and the Rishonim, it seems that there are two possibilities. Either the string would be going between the batim inside, in other words, underneath in the closed area of the batim, or another possibility is to do it in the charitz, which is between the batim on the outside of Tfilin Shel Rosh. Now, that's only possible if you have charitzim that go all the way down. As previous you learned nowadays, it's more common because they do chalitzim going all the way down, and they're still able to maintain the ribu of the tefillin by pressing it all together. But in times past, it wasn't so. So they would have glue in between the batim. I think they would do the string on the inside. I did see, like on YouTube, videos of people. It's very interesting. You could see on YouTube all kinds of videos of batimachers, people that make the batim. So I did see that they somehow, I guess it's some sort of a hidu. They call it tefillin mechuvanot, where they put the string. Just holding on my tefillin here, like going through the chalitzim of the batim on the outside, like this. Anyway, I guess you have to see it to really understand it. But that's what I saw that some do as well.
Then it's like it's glued then to the bice, or how does it?
No, they when they do that tefirot, right, which we'll learn about, they take the gid and they make it go through the. You have the chalitzim right in between each bite, so they string one through on the outer part, and then go connected to the, I guess, to where they're sewing the batim afterwards. I don't think my tefillin are that way. At least I can't see anything going through here. So it could be that it's all inside the chut going through the bite there. I can't see anything going through the, unless it's so small that you can't see it. But all right. Again, according to what Mishnah Berurah paskins, even if you don't have it, it's not me'akiv, but lechatchila you should. Okay, so that's tefillin shel rosh. Now he's switching to tefillin shel yad. He says shel yad kotev 4 parshiyot beklaf echad וגולל אותן מסופן לתחילתן. Right, so in yad we do all 4 parshiyot on one klaf. Again, you wrap it from the end to the beginning. So when you open it up, you would have it in the beginning of the psukim. וכורך קלף עליהם ושיער רגל ומכניסם בבתים כמו של ראש. Again, as we saw, you have to wrap it both with a klaf, or the Rambam says klaf or maklit. We do klaf, plus with the hair of the egel. Again, what we do is, because we're not sure, as we saw last time, we're not sure if you first put the klaf and then the se'ar, or first the se'ar and then the klaf. There are 2 opinions, so we do both. So we wrap it first with se'ar, then we put the klaf, and then again se'ar afterwards again. Now, what happens if you have the opposite, that you want to do shel yad, but you don't have it written all on one klaf, but you have rather like tefillin shel rosh klaf, where it's written on separate klafim. So that's what he says here. Im ktavam al 4 klafim v'inicham ב4 בתים יצא, והוא שיתלם אור על 4 בתים שיהיו נראים כאחד. So if you have 4 klafim, even if you put it in 4 batim, in other words, in essence, with the situation that you have here, essentially that somebody, let's say he has 2 pairs of tefillin shel rosh. So he wants to turn one of his tefillin shel rosh into a tefillin shel yad. So the way to do that is that you cover these 4 batim with 1 piece of leather to make it appear as if it's 1 bite. Okay, and that will turn it into a tefillin shel yad. Okay, that he says here obviously would be better if you just put it in 1 bite. In other words, you would have a proper bite with tefillin shel yad. So even if it's 4 parshiyot, it's still kasher. But if you don't have that, then you cover the sort of the 4 batim to make it appear externally as if it's 1 bite. Here the Orach says you should also make sure that when you cover it with the or, you also cover the sheen, right? Because you only have the sheen in the tefillin shel rosh, not in the tefillin shel yad. Okay, says the Ramah, Hagav המנהג לדבקם בדבק שיהיה הכל כקלף אחד ויזהרו ליטול דבק כשר. In other words, the minhag is not to keep them as 4 parshiyot, but to glue them together so that it will be like 1 klaf by the fact that it's glued together. In other words, he says, even though it would be kasher even without gluing lechatchila mitzvah לדבקם. And here he quotes also, כתבו אחדים, דף שלכתחילה מצווה לכתוב על 4 פרשיות של יד בקלף אחד, מכל מקום כבר כתב ב4 קלפים חשוב כבדיעבד, ומותר להניחם לכתחילה עם הדביקה מקודם. אם נמצא טעות בפרשה רביעית, מותר לכתבה בקלף לבד, אפילו לכתחילה הדביקה דזה וכדיעבד. In other words, let's say somebody's writing tefillin shel yad, and he makes a mistake in the last parasha, mistake that cannot be corrected. So what he can do is cut it off, that last parasha, write a new parasha and glue it together, and that will be also kasher for tefillin shel yad, because the fact that he's already written 3 parshiot, that makes it like b'diavad, that he's allowed to glue the 4th parasha. Okay, Deve Kasher, he says, what is Deve Kasher? It's normal mi be'emat Torah. You need some animal sourced glue from a kosher animal. כתבתי מגדים זה רק למצווה ולא לעיכובה. כיוון דהבידיבוק אינו מעכב ממילא אין קפידו במה מדבק. Since it would be kosher even without the glue, it's not מעכב to have a kosher glue. Okay, סעיף מ"ח. אם ציפה הבתים בזהב או באור בהמה טמאה פסולים, if you covered the batim with something of another color like gold, even though it seems like I'm adorning the tefillin, or I put on it or be'emat me'ah, then that's all pasul. Here he points out in the Be'ur Halacha that if you were to put or kasher, it would be kasher as long as the sheen is still visible. Again, the sheen has to be visible. Okay, let's go on now to the tefillot, sewing the tefillin together. הלכה למשה מסיני, שיהיו תפילין נתפרים בגידי בהמה וחיה טהורים, וטוב לתפור בגידי שור. Right, so we said one of the halachot למשה מסיני of tefillin that it needs to be sewed together with the gidim, the sinews of either a בהמה or chaya טהורים. And he says, Tov litfor begidei shor, to use that of an ox. He has an interesting safek here. What's the safek on gida nashe? On the one hand, we say it should be mina mutar beficha. So you say maybe gida nashe is not kasher. But on the other hand, we are allowed to take from gidim of nevelot utrefot. So it just has to be a min that's kasher. So it could be, but since the type of animal is kasher, it doesn't matter even if it's from the Gida Nashe, or you could say no, since the Gida Nashe is never edible, then you can't use it. So that's his suffix that he has here on Gida Nashe. Okay, Sif Nun. Ein liknot gidim meino Yehudi mishum dechayshinan shema shel behemat me'ahim. Okay, you should not buy the gidim from a non-Jew because we're concerned that they're from a behemat me'ah. Here, he has an interesting discussion on this in Mishnah Berurah. He says, ודווקא כשהוא הולך לבתי הנוכרים לקנות מהם גידים, וגם ידוע לו שמקצת מן הנוכרים הנוטלים מן הגידים מבהמת מאה. לכן אף על פי שהרוב נוטלים מתורה, כיוון שהוא הולך אצל נוכרי בשעה שהם קבועים בבתיהם, אין הולכים אחר הרוב שכל קבוע כמחצה על מחצה דם. אבל אם העובד גידולים מביא לשוק, מותר לקנות ממנו שכיוון שפירש מקבותן, אמרים על כל דבר ישמרו בפריש, אם לא שמוכרים שם בחנויות, אז חוזרים לקבותן. In other words, the problem here is as follows. Even the non-Jews, most of the gidim that they are selling are from kosher animals. It's only a minority which is coming from not kosher. So here we get into the cheshbon of rov and kavua. So if you're going to the set place where they sell, such as in their homes or their fixed stores, since there are a minority of non-kosher gidim, that's considered kavua and you can't buy. If it's, however, already outside the stores, in other words, let's say they're just peddling it to some market where there is no set stores in place, then you can buy because we go by the rov that it's from kasher. And also he says, וכן אם אין ידוע שמקצתן נוטלין אותן מבהמת מאה, גם כן נותר לקנות מהם בכל עניין שרוב גידים עם בהמות טהורות. And if sometimes if you have no knowledge that they have it all from non-kosher animals, then you can buy. But he says, כל זה בגידים שאינם טבועים. אבל גידים טבועים, in other words, if they've already processed the gidim to make them into strings, דעת המגן אברהם, אסור לקנות מהם, אפילו הוא יודע שמהמת תורה, שכיוון שהוא הלכה למשה בסיני, צריך שתהיה עשייתן לשמה, וטביעת הגידים זוהי עשייתן. ונוכרים, לאבני לשמה נינו, כתבו, דאליה רב עובדים מגדים מפקדים, מבאי כלל בזה תביעה לשמה. In other words, the question here is follows. When you process the gidim to make them into like these strings, does that need to be done lishma or not? So there's a machloket achronim here, according to Magen Avraham, it does need to be done lishma, so therefore, I think nowadays they just buy it from people who make it from the gidim, process them, do it lishma for the tefillin. Continuing in the Mechaber, he says, מקום שאין גידים מצויים, תופרים בתלידוש, שעושים מן הקלף עד שיזדמנו להם גידים. If they don't have גידים, there is a way to take from the clef itself and to make from the clefs like strings. So he says in places where they don't have gidim, so you can tie the tefillin with these sort of strings that are made from the clef until you find gidim. However, he says here in the Mishnah Berurah that you should not make a bracha on such tefillin. Why? Because since it's halacha l'Moshe misnai begidim, it's not so clear that the tefillin are kosher if you tied them up with anything else other than gidim. So therefore, he says you should still put them on, כדי לא להתבטל ממצוות תפילין, but you should not make a bracha. Also, the gidim have to be from an animal and not from a bird, because in the bird, he says we're not clear to us what exactly is defined as gidim in a bird. Yeah, here he says that if you tied them originally with the clef strings, then you have to first untie it and then tie it with gidim. Because if he explains here in the Orach Chaim, the problem is that if you tie them like you just add the gidim on top, it's not considered that you're tying them because it's already tied up. So you first have to untie them, whatever you have there in place instead of the gidim, and then retie them with the gidim. Okay, how do you do the tefirot? So he says here in seif nun aleph, יתפור 3 תפירות בכל צד, וחוט התפירה יהיה סובב משתי רוחות, ויעביר חוט התפירה בין כל בית לבית. הגם יהיו אם לא עשה רק י' תפירות או פחות מזה אינו נפסל. ויש מי שאומר שי"ב תפירות אלו יהיו בחוט אחד. So the way you do it, again, what we're tying here is around the batim, and we want to tie the titura, again, because what happens is, like we have with the tefillin, it's first of all open. You can see YouTube videos of how they do this. It's very nice to see it. The tefillin are open, and then you want to close them shut. So you close them, and then you tie them together, going from the top titura by the batim to the bottom. So you can see on your tefillin how the gidim go from they appear on the top and on the bottom, and you have a total of 12 shalosh tfirot bechol tzad. In other words, it's the string goes around in 3 places. In other words, there's a total of sort of 3 tfirot on each side, a total of 12. Again, and the tfirot, as we learned, they have to make a proper square, so it goes in a proper square. And let's see what he means here on that. Here, the reason for 12, he says, and he says here, we're not tying the bite itself, rather it's going around the bite on the part extending from the bite, which is already the titura. In other words, on the other hand, you don't do the tefirot at the edge of the titura, like you would a beged where you do the tefirot at the edge of the cloth. Here you do it like in the middle, closer to the bite, not the bite itself, but closer to the bite, not at the end. Okay. וצריך שאור הבתים מלמטה לפיו יהיו יוצאים מכל 4 רוחותיהם עד שהם מגיעים תחת נקבי התפילה, כדי שיתפור אור הבתים מכל צדים הטיטורה, ולא כהסופרים המקצר אור הבתים שאינו עובר הלאה תחת נקבי התפילה ואינה נתפרק עליהם עם הטיטורה. In other words, he says it has to be extending from the bite all the way to the titura, to where you're doing the holes, and it all gets tied together. So it's all connected. The bite, the titura. As we said, the way we do it anyway, the bite and the titura are the same piece of leather. Now, what does it mean when he says here, it's going from 2 sides? So he says, רצונו לומר שכל תפילה יהיה מסובבת משני צדדים פנים ואחור. נמצאת תופר בבית מחטים, אחת יוצאת לאחור ואחת נכנסת לצד פנים. In other words, you're sewing, and then I think what it means is you're going like this in one direction, and then you're coming back. So each tefillah, gets fully wrapped in each spot. In other words, you're going like this, down, like this, and then coming back up So it's all tied from both the bottom and the top in each one of the tefillot. Okay, yavir chut hatfira ben kol bait lebait. That's what we said earlier. Even though again, it seems that mi'ikar din this is only required when I've written in a tefillin shel rosh on all. Again, this is talking about only tefillin shel rosh. So even though it seemed like that was only applied when I've written them all on one cloth, and then I need something to separate, as the Mechaber here says, the minhag is to do it in all cases that the tefillah passes between each bait. Here he says, אם לא עשה רק י' תפירות או פחות מזה אינו נפסל. ויש מי שאומר שי"ב תפירות אלו יהיו בחוט אחד, that it should be all be done with one long gid. So you take a long gid and you do the entire tefirot going all throughout. Here he says, if let's say it got cut off, so some say you can able to tie it, some say no, you need to start new. And he says if you don't have other gidim, then you can rely on it. So if it gets somehow, cut off at some point, you're able to retie the pieces together. Okay, let's see. Interesting here. It's interesting Orach that says here, היתפור, שמעתי בשם אחד הגדולים שהזהיר שלא לדבק הטיטורה בדבק קודם התפירה. בדבק חשיב חיבור כתפירה, כמו שכתוב בסעיף מ"ז. אם כן, אפשר לתפירה שאחר כך לא חשיב כלום, והלכה למשה מסיני נאמר רק על תפירה ולא על דיבוק וצריך עיון בזה. What he's saying here is as follows. Again, the halacha למשה מסיני is that the titura needs to be closed off together by tfirot. So the Orach says, let's say I'll glue it together before I do the tefirot. That would make the tefirot pasul. Why? Because it's already connected together by the glue, not by your tefirot. So what is the point of then doing the tefirot afterwards? It's not attaching anything together because it's already attached together. So therefore he says you should not glue it together before you've done the tefirot. So first you do the tefirot to attach it again, to close off the tefillin. And then seemingly from the Orach, it seems that you can glue it afterwards. In other words, once I've already closed it off with the tefillot, if I want to make it stronger and add some glue in, that would be fine, because when I did the tefillot, it's proper. I saw quoted in the name of the Chazon Ish that he says, no, he says, it's lav dafka kodem atfira, even after the tefira, you should not add glue. Why not? Because even after you've done the tefira, he claimed that once you've added the glue, then even though you did it after the tefira, you've made the tefira redundant because now it's glued together. So therefore, the Chazon Ish says, even though the Orach says here, lo ledebek betfira bedebek kodem atfira, it's lav dafka, and even after the tefira, you should not glue together. So I don't know if this is common practice, but there are people who are machmir for this Chazon Ish, and they don't want any glue at all gluing together the titura tachtona with the titura elyona and the batim. They only want the tefirot to close it off, based on that Chazon Ish. Okay, let's try and see for the last seif, and that will finish the siman. He says here, יכניסה רצועה תוך המעברתא, ויעשה קשר כמין ד' בשל ראש, וכמין י' בשל יד, להשלים אותיות שדי עם השין שבשל ראש. So again, the ma'abarta is the part after the titura, this section here, where the ritzuot goes into. You can see it's separated, it's cut off from the ribua of the ma'abarta, of the titura, and it goes through. So now he says, when you make it go through, so in the shel rosh, you make a naf, which is like a dalid. Now it's mentioned here, there are two customs on this. What does it mean, kemin dalid? Either you make it like, that's like, for example, what I have, that it's just just like the shape of a dalid with one ritzua going this way, another ritzua going that way. He quotes here, some make like a knot, which is actually a double dalid, which turns it off into like a square closed off. So it's more like a mem sofit. Okay, I don't know if you have that custom.
Yes, we do it like that.
Both of us have actually this double dalit.
It's what? Is it a Yekishe thing or what is it?
Yes, Hungarian and the, I mean, old Hungarian and the real Ashkenaz. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I heard in the name of Rav Soloveitchik, that he said that I don't know. I've just heard it reported that he said that in every area one should follow Minhag Avoisav, with the exception of the double dalit. That if you have a double dalit, you should go back to the single dalit.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Rav Soloveitchik, but I never did this step.
Yeah, he says here, he brings here, some say that the dalit is yoter mechuvan ledina. I saw some that wanted to claim that even if you have the double dalit, it's still okay because if you take into account the ritzuot extending afterwards, it still has the shape of a dalit. Okay, yeah, so that's the two minagim on that. And in the tefillin shel yad, as he says, you make it, it's sort of like not like shel rosh, because the ritzua is extending only in one direction, so you take it out of the ma'abat and there you make a knot of a shape of shel yud. I did see somewhere, maybe it was in the Dirshu or one of the notes, that after you've made the shape of the yud, you can cut off the ritzua there, the extraneous part of that. Okay, now here the Rama brings another minhag. I don't know if this is something you've encountered also. He says, Agav nogim להעביר אור על הבית של יד לרוחב הזרוע, ויהיה רוחבו כרוחב הבית. That they put another ritzua strip going on top of the bite of shel yad. Okay, I don't know if you've ever encountered that. In the Beit Yosef, he says there is no minhag like that. The minhag is not like that. The Darkei Moshe says our minhag is to do that. Here the Mishnah Berurah says, "V'achshav be'elu aratzot lo na'agu b'zeh." I don't know if there's anybody who still follows this custom. He says, "V'lo ya'aseh aksharim ela la'achar השין מתפילין, ואחר כך יעשה הדלת, ואחר כך האותיות כסדר אותיות השם." So if you're making two pairs of tefillin, the shin obviously is in the bite itself, then you tie the shel rosh and make the shin, and then you tie the shel yad and make the yud, so then you're going in the order of the name of Hashem. Okay, the reason why they put this ritzua on top of the tefillin was to make it stronger. Nowadays, that we do it from all be'magasa, the tefillin shel yad are strong anyway, so there's not much concern for this. And just one last point here on the Orach Chaim, he says some people started to make the kesher of the tefillin not a proper kesher, but one that could easily be adjusted. So he says that's not good. He says that's an aniva, that's not considered the kesher. The kesher needs to be something strong. I think the reason they did that, maybe if multiple people were using the same tefillin, so they wanted to easily adjust the size. Maybe that's why they did that. But anyway, that's what the Orach Chaim here objects to. Any questions or comments? All right, very good. Shkoyach, everyone. So we finished siman lamed bet. It's a big achievement. And Zot Hashem will continue forward.
Thank you so much.
All right, go to Shkoyach.
Bye-bye.